Because it turns out that the thing that causes people to fall in love and to be loved comes down to one word, I guess: intimacy. In other words, to be known, to have a connection with a person at a real level. Because if you're wearing a mask, a person can't know who you really are. And of course, that begs this question of, does the person know who they really are? Which, by the way, gets to a really even more basic question than that. Is there such a thing as who you really are? Because if it's true that we're shaped by the people around us, the environment around us, then there is no real you. There's a constantly forming you, and there can be a real, true expression of you. But there is no like personality that's just born, this is just who you are, and then you move through the world that way. It's only a constantly developing you. Yes, you probably have both of those two things going on. So you've got the mask, which allows you to move freely among people, but then the mask also shields you from criticism. Because if you're presenting a false front, and I judge you, or if I insult you, I'm not really judging or insulting you, I'm judging and insulting the mask. In a very kind of simple way, we use cliches all the time. So not to pick on this one, but we say things like, at the end of the day, or we say things like, oh, what's my favorite? It's so mindless. It is what it is. We say cliches like that because we don't know what to say. So we fill in that space with just a phrase that's designed to end a conversation, not to continue a conversation, not to gain or continue understanding, but to end the conversation. It's kind of like if a person says, well, you know what? We all have our own points of view. Yeah, you're right. Everybody has their own point of view. And that's not designed to continue a conversation so we can clarify and get some understanding between each other. That's designed to end the conversation. It's like a transition thing, then move on to something else. But more than anything, also, when we talk in cliches, first off, we assume that somebody else has already said what we're about to say better than we possibly could have. So we'll use a cliche like, it is what it is, or at the end of the day, or there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them, of course. But when we use them, it also shields us from criticism, because if I attack what you just said, I'm not attacking you. I'm not attacking the real you. I'm attacking that shield that you've put up in front. Because now you can always fall back and say, well, those weren't my real thoughts. Those weren't my real feelings. It's like if you like somebody and you want to be sweet, so you give them a poem. There's a difference between giving somebody a poem and writing somebody a poem. And if I give you something from Wordsworth, then you can, first off, it's probably pretty good. That's one of the reasons that we give it. But also, if you look at it and you're like, oh, I don't really like that. Oh, that's just Wordsworth. It's fine. But if I write you a poem and then you read it and you're like, well, Scallon, this sucks. but those are my true feelings. Well, your true feelings are stupid, or they're badly expressed at the very least. Did you revise? Oh, you couldn't have revised this. Go back and revise this like 10 times. Then bring it back and express your true love. Oh, okay. And then you'll wander off, and maybe you'll never write again because somebody attacked your real feelings, the real true you. Did I ever talk to you guys about the questions for falling in love? Ever tell you about those? Oh man. So there are these researchers who put together this, I don't know what you call it, this list of questions. It's 36 questions for falling in love. And the way it works is this. They designed these questions after years of study, and then they did a randomized study where they brought people together. If I'm not mistaken, it was really as random as they put men and women, they put men and women's names into hats, and then drew them out at random, and then paired them together. Boom, 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 boom. No consideration about background, no consideration about values, religion, culture, race, anything like that. Put them together, and then they gave them a list of 36 questions and said, go through these 36 questions, and at the end of it, we'll see what the study's about. The questions are broken up into 3 sections of 12. And essentially, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's questions that make you fall in love with somebody, reciprocally. So when the first question is something to the effect of, if you could have dinner with anybody in the world, who would it be? Okay? So for example, somebody answer that question. If you could have dinner with anybody in the world, who would it be?
Jack Black.
Jack Black. Why Jack Black?
He's awesome.
He's awesome. And what do you mean he's awesome? In what sense?
He's a good actor.
Okay. What's your favorite movie he's been in?
Kung Fu Panda.
What is Kung Fu Panda? Is that what?
What's
Now, what's that?
I think it's called The Holiday.
The what?
The Holiday.
The Holiday? Never saw it. But Kung Fu Panda, man. I watched Kung Fu Panda like a year ago because a friend of mine, actually maybe 2 years ago now, because a friend of mine kept telling me how good it is and how deep it is. He's like, you like philosophy, right? I said, yeah. I said, then you gotta watch Kung Fu Panda. I said, really? Yeah, Kung Fu Panda.
Do you agree?
No. No. I thought it was philosophy for people who don't know philosophy. When you, sorry, sometimes you have to, I don't know, man. Sometimes you can be a, like how I just push off onto you guys. Sometimes I can be a snob. Is there like a subject that you know a lot about, and then when somebody mentions it, you're like, you know nothing about that, and you're offended that they'd even bring it up. Philosophy can be like that to me because people oftentimes talk about philosophy like, philosophy is you walk into your college class and you have your hands jammed in your pockets, and the professor walks up there and goes, why? And then someone goes, why not? And the professor goes, you have an A. And we all go, yeah. That's not philosophy. That's not philosophy, but...
What about Master Uble?
What about what?
Master Uble.
Master Uble?
Yeah, the turtle.
What about him?
He was hella philosophy, yeah.
No, he wasn't. He was a turtle. He was a turtle who repeated lines from a scriptwriter who took like an introduction to philosophy class. I am better than him.
Did you guys enjoy the movie? At least?
Yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it. Now, having what you just heard, we learned a lot about Ruben. If he were to make a dating profile, what would it say? I like walks on the beach, movies, family, and we all go, oh wow, he sounds so interesting. Everybody says the exact same thing. Anybody get up there and say, I'm fascinated by serial killers and pandas that do martial arts? Swipe the other direction for that one. The point is that by asking just that one question, I learned a lot about him. He likes Jack Black, but what's Jack Black known for? What kind of movies? Comedy. So he has a sense of humor. And not only does he have a sense of humor, but the movie he likes is a kid's movie. We show you he's young at heart. Now, by the way, the person who recommended Kung Fu Panda to me was like 32 years old. So this wasn't like like a 7-year-old in my kids' class. You should watch Kung Fu Panda. This is a 32-year-old sitting on my couch. You should watch Kung Fu Panda. And by the way that he came across that movie was when he was like in his early 20s, I guess it was. One of his mentors who was like in his 40s told him, you gotta watch Kung Fu Panda. It's a deep movie. Now, after that one question, I know way more about him than I would get from some kind of a profile. And then the questions work like that. The first 12 questions are things like that. Not superficial, but kind of simple. Then the next 12 questions are a bit deeper. Then the next 12 questions below that are really, really deep. And they're vulnerability creating questions, I guess you could say. In other words, one of the questions is, at this moment, both of us are feeling what? So you have to sit there with this other person who you've just spent like 2 hours answering questions with, and then you have to answer that question. Now, if you feel a connection with this person, it takes a lot of guts to say, at this moment, we're both feeling romantically connected. So what if that person goes, what? You? No. Go back to hell where you came from. You have to be able to put yourself out there. So by the time you get to that bottom, if the person says that, and your response is the same, yeah, we're both feeling connected. Wow, you've broken down those barriers. The point of those 36 questions is to break down those barriers. Because it turns out that the thing that causes people to fall in love And to be loved it comes down to one word, I guess: intimacy. In other words, to be known, to have a connection with a person at a real level. Not that superficial level of the first several weeks or months of dating where you're putting forth a face of like, oh my God, sushi, I love sushi, when you hate sushi. Or, oh yeah, wow, walking on the beach, I love it. And like a year later, you're like, God, I hate the beach. It's the sand, it gets everywhere. If you know, you know. In other words, after some time, the mask starts to break down. Those 36 questions are designed to break down the mask immediately. Because if you're wearing a mask, a person can't know who you really are. And of course, that begs this question of, does the person know who they really are? Which, by the way, gets to a really even more basic question than that. Is there such a thing as who you really are? Because if it's true that we're shaped by the people around us, the environment around us, then there is no real you. There's a constantly forming you, and there can be a real, true expression of you. But there is no like personality that's just born, this is just who you are, and then you move through the world that way. It's only a constantly developing you. And so, is the constantly developing you actually known by a person? Or is it just this constant mask? Because if you lie to a person and you tell them something that you're not, then don't be surprised when they fall in love with the mask. And then don't be surprised if eventually that relationship falls apart, because we all wear masks, true, but man, they get itchy after a while. You remember any of you guys mask up a few years ago after COVID? How many of you guys were able to wear those masks all day? Totally fine, no problem. How many of you guys were like every 10 minutes, every 10 seconds, oh, I hate these things. Yeah, some people can wear masks for longer. Some people can wear masks for much longer. But eventually, all masks get uncomfortable. Even when you go to sleep, you take the mask off, the literal mask. Now, metaphorically, if the mask is different from who you actually are, there's an uncomfortability there, because you're pretending to be. It's like you're kind of creating a schizophrenia inside of yourself. This is who I really am. This is who I'm pretending to be, and the mask gets itchy after a while. It gets uncomfortable after a while. And so you take the mask off just a little bit, just so you can breathe. You pull the mask, below your chin, and then the person sees who you really are. And you're complaining now about walking on the beach. I thought you liked walks. Yeah, I mean, they're fine, but I know I've come over it by now. You never really liked it in the first place. And that's just the first indication that the mask has slipped. Maybe this person isn't who I actually loved. And you won't articulate it that way, but you will recognize and go, wow, you've changed. Well, the person didn't change. The person just became more like themselves. Because none of us really change. We just become more like ourselves. And so the danger, of course, on that side is eventually getting found out. It's also that you're going to be uncomfortable because you're not going to be able to be who you really are. But also, let's just say that person who you've shown this mask to is absolutely in love with you. And moreover, you're absolutely in love with them. But now you recognize that they don't really love you. They love the mask. They love the thing that you've presented yourself as being. And so if you walk through life constantly wearing masks, nobody can ever love you for who you really are. That's the downside. Of course, the upside, as he mentions, is that nobody can actually hate you for who you actually are either. Because now you've hidden yourself. And then you can sit in your room and turn off the lights and play your emo music and fold your arms and just go, nobody knows who I really am. Well, of course they wouldn't. You've never shown them. You've never shown them, because people will just hurt you. You don't need help with that, man. You're doing a damn good job hurting yourself with your pessimism. What's the worst that can happen? I could get hurt. You're already hurting. You're already alone. And if you're not hurting now, you will be eventually. And so, yeah, he's not saying this as a celebration. He's pointing this out. People are least like themselves when we talk in our own person, when we tell you who we really are. But if you give them a mask, they'll tell you the truth. And by the way, some of you, maybe you're this person, I'm this person. You don't have to lie. Just tell the truth. Nobody's going to believe you anyway. Any of you guys like that? You tell something true and real, no one believes you. Everyone thinks you're full of crap. Yeah, that's me. All you gotta do is tell the truth, and then people think that you're joking anyway. And then it's depressing, because then when you're joking, people think you're serious. Then when you're serious, people think you're joking. And then people go, I can't figure you out. There's nothing to figure out. It's pretty simple. But it's not simple, because it's different from what everybody else does. Most other people do. So the point is, you can't fall in love with a person you're not comfortable with. Not really. All you can do is fall in love with the mask. So, questions? Comments, concerns, complaints, criticism, critiques? All right, well, happy Thursday, man. Not too bad.